slides for this?
Yes, I
All
do.
right, go ahead. They're all yours. Go ahead. And
All
then
right.
to our audience, after that, Emma will speak and then we'll be ending. But I just want to let you hear Ariel. Go ahead.
All right, David. Are my slides up? Can you see them currently?
Yes, they are. They look good.
Okay,
Can you
perfect.
see
Thank
your
you very
face
much.
and your voice?
You can or can't hear me?
I can hear you just fine.
Oh, okay, perfect. Thank you. Hi again, everyone. I'm continuing in some ways on the theme of my prior talk, but now it's continuing the people's movement to save San Bruno Mountain through community-based ecological restoration. And so I want to talk to begin first to think about what some of the social benefits are of restoration that is participatory, that engages the public, that is done with volunteers from local communities, and in particular in the context of San Bruno Mountain. So the first social benefit is that engaging people in natural resource management continues the legacy of the democratic and grassroots involvement of people in the affairs of San Bruno Mountain. Just like people in the past helped save San Bruno Mountain from destructive forces, back then, for example, the Crocker Lane Company, now there are still destructive forces. As Dr. Nelson notes, the mountain is never saved, and that's something that our founder David Schooley also says all the time too. There's all sorts of challenges, whether it be, for example, invasive plants, and still in some areas some development, but in the context of here, in particular, habitat challenges like invasive plants or other processes. And so having people be involved in restoration and stewardship helps them become part of the ecological process. And in a sense, just like they helped shape the future of the mountain back when there were all these movements happening, people can still be involved in shaping the future direction of the mountain's ecology too. Another important social value of engaging people in restoration in San Bruno Mountain, and especially in the context of the San Bruno Mountain Habitat Conservation Plan, is that these types of volunteer engagement with, for example, the Habitat Conservation Plan helps people perform both symbolically and physically the tension of the San Bruno Mountain HCP. And so this is a lot of history that we didn't get to cover because it was post 76. I'm going to do a very brief and simplistic version of it now, but you'll remember that the Board of Supervisors in 76 voted to keep the saddle in open space, but they did authorize development in other parts of the mountain, like the South Slopes is pictured here, and the Northeast Ridge and other areas. However, after they had authorized development in these areas, the listing of butterflies that were endangered, like the Clippy silver spot by some UC Berkeley entomologists like Dick Arnold, for example, and Larry Orsak, they became another barrier and challenge for the developers. All of a sudden, they had been, in a sense, promised they could develop in certain areas. And because these butterflies were endangered, because they were protected under the Federal Endangered Species Act, they could not take or harm the butterflies or their habitat, at least temporarily. So there became a compromise of sorts, as it was thought by some, to allow developers to develop these areas in the endangered species habitat in return for making a plan to try to preserve many other parts of the mountain, to dedicate more acreage into permanent protection, and also to provide funding for the maintenance of that habitat. And that was, in a sense, a different way of looking at the Endangered Species Act, a different way of that led to a lot of controversy, that did allow for some development in endangered species habitat, and did lead to a lot of infighting between groups, for example, like the Committee to Save San Bruno Mountain, which during this time split up. The groups that disagreed with the Habitat Conservation Plan became Bay Area Mountain Watch, which then became San Bruno Mountain Watch, and which were involved in protesting some of the early developments that were allowed by the HCP. But maybe in a general, more philosophical way, what the HCP was expressing on a society, on the level of society, was that humans can be both detrimental forces on the environment, that humans can be positive forces on the environment, but also detrimental forces. and that even when we can harm some areas, that we should still be involved in trying to protect and care for them as a whole. And so I think the HCP, one of the things that it does is that it allows people to feel that emotion, that people have both hurt and helped San Bruno Mountain, and that it's a very, both actions are present, and we all are part of both of those. As you noted in prior talks, even something like driving and the emissions from that can affect the soil chemistry and can affect the ecology of the mountain. So those are some of the social values of getting people involved in restoration on the mountain. And now I just want to point out, give a quick review of some of the restoration projects and activities that San Bruno Mountain Watch carries out on San Bruno Mountain with the guidance of partnership of San Mateo County Parks, with the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, with local surrounding cities, and with also local communities as well. So one of our main focuses is working within the critical grasslands that Stu and Lek discussed and mapped out to help steward the habitat of the mountain's listed butterfly species. So here on the right, the mission blue and the clippy silver spot on the left. And both of these photos actually were taken during a volunteer event day. So this one, both of these in Buckeye Canyon, actually. So we do a lot of planting. This is our Mountain Watch's Restoration is Strong Wildflower Carriage, as I refer to it, filled with a mix of native nectar plants like the Franciscan wallflower and host plants. You can see here in the bottom of the barrel, the silver lupin being loaded up and taken up the slopes of the mountain, as all of our plants are, in preparation for restoration planting days through the Habitat Conservation Plan funding. So here's an example of some of these plantings. A lot of our plantings are targeted in areas where prior groups and contractors have come and in some cases controlled both native and non-native scrub. In this instance, it was coyote brush that had been removed here, and then that we came in and kind of after it was dead, moved out of the way, and then brought in our native grassland mix of plants to be laid out and planted. You can see here, this is just 4 months after the planting, from January 2018 to May 2018, how old the plants have grown in, a mix of gum plant, Phacelia, yarrow. There's some silver lupins in there, coyote mint. We do plant brownie thistle, was mentioned earlier, California horkelia. If you're curious in all of the lists, you can get in contact and we can send you our data and our planting mix. But you can see here, in certain areas, these planting, I think of them as buffets, or maybe birthday cakes that are sweet nectar that is there for the butterflies when they emerge as adults, when they're born as adults. In some cases can be some of the critical sources of nectar. As you see in the backdrop, this is pretty much all wild oat, except for this little island here of nectar plants. And this is the view, the plants still surviving and in some cases still blooming all the way into July. So here are some of my favorite photos from the past few years of some community planting days. I believe this was on a Valentine's Day. We did a Giving Flowers to the Mountain planting day on the ridge. You can see here planting within the skeleton of the prior scrub. We try to engage people from all over the different communities around the mountain. So these, for example, are some students from a little bit south down the peninsula towards Burlingame. These are a mix of, a lot of different people here in Buckeye and Owl Canyon from this past planting season. This is a group from an organization called Latino Outdoors that came out in 2019. So that's just a quick taste of some of our planting projects that are focused on helping provide nectar and a host for the listed butterflies. I want to give a really quick review of our Dunes project. These are the San Bruno Mountain Dunes on the very western side of the mountain, where we have a quick natural history bit. These dunes are the geology is that they're part of the Colma Formation. The sediment was brought in about 125,000 years ago during an interglacial period when sea level was much higher. And this sediment was brought in on the water then in what we now call the Colma Strait. So here's the mountain now, and here's a depiction of the mountain back then, when this high level of water was around. And you can see here all this sandy sediment allows for plants that usually are coastal. Like here on the left, we have the beach blue lupin, and on the right, we're seeing the endangered San Francisco lysandria, more of the beach blue lupin, dewey in the background. This lysandria is also federally endangered, only grows elsewhere in the Presidio, and apart from the Presidio and San Bruno Mountain, nowhere else on Earth. And here's another example of a rare plant on the dunes, the San Francisco spine flower. We've been working over the past 5 years to do a lot of ice plant removal. So I'm going to show you just a few before and after pictures. And what I love about this work is that it's been done primarily by elementary school students in Daly City. So these are some students from Susan B. Anthony Elementary. We do a lot of field trips where they can just walk to the mountain from their school, and also other community volunteers. These are some students from Westboro Middle School in South City helping out. And you can see here, 2014, a lot of ice plant is still apparent in a lot of these areas. You can see here, after that time, a lot of the removal we've done is completely taken out the ice plant from these areas. And all these spots were areas that were bordering populations of the San Francisco lysandria. After doing that, we've gone back and done planting of native dune plants in these areas, also with students. And so one quick example of a type of plant that we're planting back there, which is exciting, is the sea pink. It's a coastal plant usually found on bluffs and dunes that was rediscovered on the mountain a few years ago by a photographer called Judy Hiramoto. And our nursery was able to do a collection, expand the seed, and now we're reintroducing it to parts of the mountain like the San Bruno Mountain dunes. And it's a plant that other county parks is also planting. We also do a lot of weed removal. This photo is just one day of ivy pulling in partnership with the City of Brisbane Open Space and Ecology Committee during one of our summer habitat restoration days. This is some broom removal in Owl Canyon. Another quick project, last one I'll highlight, is we have this year, we're doing in a sense a restoration project, but more of a cultural landscape restoration. We got a grant from the California Garden Clubs Incorporated to be their 2-year President's Project to restore a botanical garden that
Okay. All right. It looks like we've lost Ariel here. I'll give him a moment. He is working on Wi-Fi, and he might be having a Wi-Fi problem. I'm going to take over that screen for a moment and hopefully let him get back. Oh, there we go. Ariel, you back again now?
Yes, I'm back. Can you see me?
I can see you, but I stole your screen. Why don't you go ahead and take over the screen again?
Okay, perfect. And I just have a minute or two more, so I'm almost done there.
Not a problem. Oh, there you go. You have the screen.
Okay. So just to, perfect. Just to go back a little bit, here are some photos from the initial San Bruno Mountain Botanical Garden project that was led by Doug, for example, through the original Mission Blue Nursery in South San Francisco. And now it's still on the map. You can see here native plant garden, but it's really more of an archaeological site. You might find some buried plant signs from back in the day, and there are some plants that survived, but for the most part, it needs a lot of work. And so Mountain Watch is working again to clear the site. It had gotten invaded by a lot of coyote brush. Here are some of our speakers today, David and Emma here, with showing you a lot of the scrub that we removed. And thank you to the county parks for partnering with us to support this effort. Here's a photo from one of our initial, from our first work day back in November, the first effort to begin, working on this garden again. Here's Doug, who couldn't be here today, but we definitely honored him on this occasion. And I know that there's some people who are guests today at the conference. I saw Jerry's here who were involved in that day. Last, I just want to highlight really briefly our Mission Blue Nursery, which makes so much of our work possible. Built by all volunteers here at the base of San Bruno Mountain in Brisbane. We only grow the native flora of San Bruno Mountain. We sometimes get calls from people, asking about ginkgo trees and apple trees and orange trees, but we're proud to just grow the local flora of San Bruno Mountain and be super local. and it's not a limit at all. There's so much amazing flora to source and grow. Seaside daisies and hummingbird sage, sticky monkey flower, pearly everlasting, blue-eyed grass are some of the ones that I was looking through some photos and looked really, really nice to share. This is our nursery manager, Carly Feldman, really happy on the mountain next to the San Bruno Mountain Manzanita. And some of our volunteers during our cherished snack time. Some more photos of volunteers of all ages helping us at our nursery with everything from propagation to just, helping us expand our growing grounds in our mist house. These are some friends from a corporate group that came out on an Earth Day event. And we really are a community-based group. Mountain Watch is a very small organization in terms of staff, only two full-time staff, but we have such an amazing community that helps us out in every single way. In the nursery, on the mountain, and more. Our board is also all volunteer, and so we really appreciate any support all the support that we get. People want to continue to engage with us on the mountain and engage in the projects that I mentioned and some others. Check out this webpage. And I also, like Hannah noted, I do want to recognize the South San Francisco Weed Warriors. I missed including a photo of them, but they also do amazing weed control work on the South Slopes. And I'm excited to turn it over now to Emma, who's going to share about Sign Hill. So